race is always part of your experience, but as like as a person, like as Clay explained to me, as a person who's gets the benefits of racism, you can kind of ignore it. But that's not your experience, is what I would assume,
Well,
right?
actually, that's not true. And
Okay.
also, I would push back on what he said to you about the benefits of racism. You've obviously been extremely burdened by
Uh,
racism.
well, that's
And
a nice thing to say.
well, it's just true. I mean, think about all the experiences that you had where you felt out of place, where you felt like uncomfortable, right? Like these were things that were imposed on you against your will that had a deleterious effect on your ability to grow and develop. And you even had to leave the country to get away from it, brother.
Yeah.
I mean, like if you, I'm just going off the story that you told to
Yeah.
come to that conclusion. For me, believe it or not, brother, no, I did turn away from the reality of race, even as I was experiencing racism all the time. So, how did I? I'll give you an example. So, I'm in college, right? I've gotten into the University of Rochester. I'm in there. I've met all my freshman dorm people who I'm still friends with, some of them to this day. And we're all in the common room, laughing, talking, joking, figuring, excited about the new semester. Just finished orientation. Have been getting to know each other. And this racialized black guy in a suit comes down the hallway, and he comes, and I'm like the only racialized black guy I've seen in the dorm so far. And so, like I'm like, oh, he's here for me, And sure enough, he was a representative from the Office of Minority Affairs, and he's like, hey, can we talk privately? And I say, no, whatever you want to say, you can say here in front of everybody, you know. And he was like, well, listen, I'm from this office. We're here to offer support to students who are, minority students and this and that. And brother, at that time, 19 years old, I was insulted because that's what I was taught to be. I was
Yeah.
trained
Okay.
and taught to be insulted that someone would treat me differently because I'm black, that I would need help because I'm black, that I would need some kind of special support because I'm black. I did not
Yeah.
have a conception of race at the time that would have allowed me to understand why that guy was coming to talk to me. And I just started, I forget the terminology used, but I started ragging on him. I started just like, making a
Hmm.
joke out of his offer to help me. And he just ended up leaving. And fast forward, I'm sitting in my
Yeah.
dorm room, senior year, reflecting upon all of my experiences, all the racism that I encountered and endured through my years at college, just being like, huh. So this is that he was. I turned away the very thing that could have had me have a
Yeah.
better experience because I was trained to do so. You know. So
Well,
yeah,
that overlaps with, when you try to tell somebody they're in an abusive relationship, right? And then they turn around and scream at you. And
precisely,
but
exactly.
it's and that almost seems to me like that's just that mechanism of, never trusting the people that come to offer aid, which is it's fundamental to this philosophy of oppression, or it's always disguised as this is the best thing for you, but we want to teach fear and we want to teach you to you could everybody else is going to hurt you. The only place you're safe is here, so don't go beyond these walls and don't engage in critical thinking and don't do all these other things. It is an interesting thing though. I mean, the years it took me a long like when I went to Peru and it takes years before you start to unpack you just all the things that all these assumptions you have about what life must be like, they're just not true. And it's all just and even, it's like you're unpacking them, you're working through them, but then you get to points where you kind of suspect something might be different, then you kind of take little baby steps, and then it's a long way to fully embracing it. But I think, if and I hope you do have a chance to go live abroad for an extended amount of time, and it'll be interesting to hear about your experience when you do that. And some of the things I think it's going to make you reevaluate all these experiences you're talking about again, and draw even new more, interesting things out of them.
I'm sure you're right. And I've been thinking about leaving the United States since I was pretty young. Like I tried to do the JET program to go teach English in Japan. I was always looking to leave this place. Not necessarily for the same reasoning that I have now, but like I always wanted to expand my perspective. And I did end up traveling and spending a couple weeks in Tokyo, and that was a just being there for a couple weeks. It was mind blowing.
Ha-
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, how did you find, how were you treated in Tokyo compared to here? What were your observations of that?
So first of all, there was a palpable lack of racial animus. Like
Okay.
like the feeling of racial animus, it's like tangible,
Hmm.
and that was very obviously and clearly absent. And so that was interesting. Second, anyone would help you anywhere, any context, any situation, you would be helped. And that was something that I wasn't accustomed to. Third, when people did call me out, it was because I was an American or because I was
Ah,
from New York City, not because I was black. Had the fact that I was black was neither here nor there for these guys, and that was novel for me.
I
So yeah, go ahead.
I'll share that in Peru. One of the things that surprised me was that I used to go out to the bars a lot. Never a bar fight ever. And it's sort of like in college. I don't know if did you have this college? Maybe this is a Wisconsin thing because Wisconsin is like the number one binge drinking state in the whole, like by a long way. And that I don't think that's generally known, but like if you do go search like the top 20 binge drinking cities in the United States, like 18 of them will be in Wisconsin. So if you go like in college, I'd go to you go to the bars to drink and dance or whatever. There'd be a fight every night. There was always fights. Do you have experience like that? Is that something you saw in your life? Have you seen a lot of bar fights?
I have stopped some bar fights. I have not seen too many, but actually, my college roommate for a couple of years was from Wisconsin, and I went and visited him in Wisconsin. So I did get a taste of the drinking culture there,
Oh,
and it
yeah.
was a little bit traumatizing. So, like, yeah, I've seen
Yeah.
some of it.
Yeah, so that surprised me in Peru. There's just no that the violence just doesn't exist, and it's sort of like, and that was another awakening thing. It's like, well, I thought just human beings were like this, and then it's like, well, you go see human beings and living in a community, they're not like that, where they're not beating on each other. So it's one of those things where it's like that just reassesses, and I think that ties into because people say like with the gun violence, they'll say, well, we're just a violent people. Like we don't have to be, other places in the world are different than that. These are things that are finding the ways to, getting through with that message. Like you're saying, it's like it can be a little frustrating. It is frustrating when you know you're right about something, or at least you're facing in the right direction, you know, and you cannot make headway with people. You cannot make them even, and then they're so good. Like sometimes you're in the presence of people where you're talking to them and they're this mechanism. It's like they aren't necessarily like intellectually gifted people, but they've been so well versed in this rhetoric of control that controls them, and they draw you into the cage that they live in, and it's just so easily done where it sucks you in. That's another thing that makes you kind of makes me react, and want to get away from them or get a little bit angry. So
You're right.
I don't
It's
know.
seamless.
There'll be a lot to unpack after this conversation. I'll have to think about some of this stuff some more. But that's good.
Yeah, man. Part of the process,
Yeah,
and
it is. It is.
I'm glad that that's how you're reflecting on it so far. Thanks for watching. For access to the full length conversation and all of the 2 hour long unedited conversations that I've had on race, click the support link in the description below. Thanks for your support and see you next time.